Hello and welcome along to Untitled Movies. My name is John and this is going to be my review for the 4K of Apocalypse Now. This is the 40th anniversary final cut edition. Now this is a funny movie for me because, to be honest, it wasn't one of my favourite movies back in the day, and when I first started going into 4K and about a year ago or 2 years ago, I thought when it came out, I thought it was one of the ones I wouldn't actually want to revisit, for the fact is I didn't really understand it when I watched it way back when. Now, I was recently contacted by John. Now I'm going to leave a link down to his video that he's going to do on this subject down below, because I've got to admit his video is absolutely stunning. If you want to know all the technical details of this movie, I urge you to check out that link down below, because John touches upon a load of stuff which, to be honest, I didn't know, because I had a conversation with him about this movie a couple of times on the phone. And I did sort of put my points across, and he did sort of say, well, this happened because of this scenario to do with the movie, and this happened for this other particular thing. He's also told me a load of information about this movie that I didn't know about, the prints and everything about it. So I urge you to check out his review down below, like I say, and also get across to his channel, because his reviews of everything are absolutely fascinating. So when John got in touch with me about checking out Apocalypse Now, I thought to myself, right, what I do is when I watch a movie in 4K, I have a ranking system of every movie that I've watched in 4K that I own. I will then rank it to see where it ranks in my list. So at number 5, it's 2018's Mortal Engines. Now this movie is quite, I can honestly say it's a bit of a mess. It does look absolutely stunning. So I had to put this, even though I've got much more favourite films behind this, in the top 10, I'm going purely on picture quality. And not so much sound, but picture quality is what I'm going to rank my listings on in 4K. So Mortal Engines, yes, it's not a great film, but the picture quality, the HDR, the set designs on it. Number 4 is 1977's Suspiria. Now this is Synapse's first journey into 4K. I think they're going to do more 4Ks this year, and I've got to admit they took the time with this, and you can tell there was like other Suspirias out there in 4K, but they didn't have any HDR on it, which is this film is the one that deserves for HDR more than anything else. The colours in here are absolutely stunning. I've never seen colours as solid. If you see a red in here, it's the best red you're ever going to see on cinema, in my opinion. And also it's so solid as well. There's no flashing, there's no nothing. The picture quality in here is absolutely amazing. The sound quality is brilliant as well, because obviously the soundtrack to here is another one that's a massive selling point of this movie. So yes, that's number 4, Suspiria. But if you want to get this 4K, it's not cheap at the minute, but this is the best 4K to get. It blows all the other ones out of the way if you want the zenith of Suspiria. So at number 3 is 1968's 2001 A Space Odyssey. Now this movie, apart from a few 60s costume designs, looks incredible. It looks as if it's shot yesterday. It's got that, just the picture is so clean. It's obviously Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece. The special effects hold out really well. In fact, they're probably better than most special effects for a good 10 years after this in the realm of science fiction. And he just put out this movie that I must admit at this time I didn't really understand it when I first saw it. I do understand it a little bit more these days, although I don't fully understand it, but I don't mind that. And I just think that looking at this movie is just a joy, and it's one of Kubrick's most visually pleasing movies. But so that's number 3. So number 2 is a film that usually gets overlooked, and I find when people talk about their greatest 4Ks that they've got in their collections, maybe because it's a movie that people think probably is not a bit of a throwaway movie that couldn't look that good, but I can tell you it really looks that good. In fact, it's a toss-up at this point between first and second places, jumps across a little bit. I only go for number 1 because it's a little bit more slightly of a favourite film of mine. So number 2 is 1978's Grease. This movie is one of my childhood favourites. I went to pictures a few times to see it at the cinema, and I loved it, and I've loved it all the time. I've had it on quite a few different versions. I must admit, it always looks good on every version I've had. But the 4K, I knew the 4K done well would be great. And it is. It's just the colours, because most of it's shot outside. It's in daylight, which I like to see in a film, because I think it brings out the best in films, in my opinion. And I do think that this one is one that, if you're into watching really good solid transfers in 4K. It's a one that you should check out. Some of these films you might want to check out because you just want to see a really good looking 4K film. You might not be that into the films. A bit like Mortal Engines isn't the greatest of films, but it's so good to look at. That's why I didn't sell it immediately. So number 2 is Grease. So at number 1 is 1975's Jaws. Yes, what can you say about this movie apart from it's just a classic? It looks absolutely stunning. The sound in it is amazing. Just they've done an amazing job with this. I knew it would because the Blu-ray from this 4K restoration looked incredible, and this one has just got that extra bit of the HDR in it. It just brings it a bit more to life. The colours are just sensational when they need to be. I just think that this movie just was begging for a good 4K, and it got it, and I was so pleased when it was announced. So that's my top 5 4Ks. So where does Apocalypse Now fit into my top 5? Now, when John told me about this film looking so good, I went out and bought it, and it's currently in the 2 for £30 sale in HMV, so it's very accessible. So the movie itself is more like a comment on the madness of war. The Vietnam War, just seems like it was madness from beginning to end, and I must admit, to be involved in that battle or that war would have been horrendous. I think any war will be horrendous, obviously. So a lot of people did come back with post-traumatic stress disorder coming from Vietnam. You can imagine it, because you could imagine this war just being madness from beginning to end. It was a war they couldn't win. It was a war where you're fighting invisible people in the jungles. So, wow, you were in their territory. They had all the upper hand. You had no chance whatsoever. So the star of the show for me in this movie is the sound quality. The sound in here is the soundtrack is a soundtrack I've never heard in my life before. Now, I don't have Dolby Atmos. This is a Dolby Atmos track on here. And I could literally hear the planes and the helicopters circling around my head, which is odd because I shouldn't be able to hear that from my soundbar. But it was really throwing this stuff around the room, and I was kind of blown away. And I do think that, in my opinion, this is the best ever soundtrack to a 4K. It just does everything it's supposed to do. So if you're an audiophile and you love your soundtracks and you love all the explosions, the bangs, the helicopters, everything, it's really well mixed as well. The music is well placed. I do think that this would blow you away, and that's essential day one purchase because of that. The picture quality on here is absolutely unreal. Now, I must say at the start, as John has alluded to in his video, that because they have some scenes where they're blending in with each other, it doesn't do it justice. So don't think that if your initial look at the film is going to be a little bit what's happening here, it doesn't look as sharp as it should do, and there's a little bit of sort of noise in the picture. Just forget about that, because these two images are merging, and you need to go back, you need to just follow it, and then eventually when the picture goes into its proper picture, then you will get the full immensity of this picture. So I've got to say, this movie really came to life for me around about the 52-minute mark, when they set off up the river in the boat and they're trying to find Kurtz at the end of this river in his sort of hideaway, is where he's got this sort of army set up, and it's just this scene is just crazy when they get to this place, and it's full of really memorable scenes. But this whole journey up there is when this film, when the look of it is just unreal. I've got to admit, that's the best ever picture quality that I've seen in a 4K. So to recap, this disc has got to be an essential buy for people who like or are a fan of 4K cinema. The picture quality, the audio quality is absolutely untouchable. The scenes, especially like I say in the river, are just unreal to look at. They're so sharp. The colours, the skin tone, the detail is just unreal. It's like I say, I was expecting it to be, because I think that sometimes I watched Apocalypse Now on a really poor VHS copy, and it's been very lackluster, and I thought, is it one that I think they can do anything with on 4K? Well, they can. So where does this fit in my top 5 4K ranking? I'm going to put it in at number 2, just behind, and I mean just behind Jaws. The only reason why I'm picking Jaws over Apocalypse Now is because I must admit, I love this film. Although if Apocalypse Now was a better looking film, I would put it above Jaws. Jaws for me is it's steadily, and it looks great through the whole film, or more of the whole film. Apocalypse Now looks good for the majority of the film. It does have that sequence for maybe an hour and a half when they're in that when they're in the river. that looks like nothing I've ever seen before, so that does top Jaws. But for the whole movie, against the whole movie, I've got to come up with Jaws as the more pleasing to the eye for the full movie. But that's not taking anything away from Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now, in its good parts, can deliver a lot more than Jaws can. So it's a funny title to sort of say it's better than Jaws, but I'm going to put it behind Jaws because I think that Jaws kind of plays out as a more enjoyable film and a film that I'm more drawn to. But bearing in mind, before I watched this 4K, I had no intention of really watching Apocalypse Now again. I thought that it was a movie that was not really anything I was going to be interested in. But that kind of shows you that a 4K movie done well can sort of elevate a title to another level. And the short story is, go out and buy this one. You will not be disappointed. The movie itself is a great film. It's a movie that I think didn't get understood at all by me and by the public at the time it was released. But I think now in reflection, and this movie here, the final cut, I did enjoy the final cut. I'm interested in seeing now the other cuts. That's why I'm going to buy the other the 6-pack of Apocalypse Now when I can find it. So thanks once again to John for asking me to do this review for this movie. It's funny thinking that I didn't really think I would like it that much or be impressed by the picture quality, but I have been impressed by the movie and the picture quality especially, and the sound quality. So it's an essential buy in 4K. And I'm so glad that John asked me to do this, because John, for me, I value his opinion. We speak all the time on the phone, and also I've been a fan of his channel ever since I came to the channel about a year ago. So thanks once again for watching. You take care, and I'll see you next time.